Buffalo's new stadium is already open, at least officially. The ribbon has been cut, the construction crews have been honored, the seats are installed, the concourses are finished. The Bills have a new home, across the street from the old one, in Orchard Park. And somehow, after more than $2 billion, the biggest question around the project is still the same one people were asking from the beginning. How did Buffalo spend this much money and still end up with an open-air stadium? That is the part that makes this project so controversial. The Bills held their ribbon-cutting ceremony on June 23, 2026. The first regular season game at the new Highmark Stadium is scheduled for September 17, 2026, against the Detroit Lions. The stadium has modern clubs, wider concourses, premium spaces, new technology, a natural grass field, and a canopy designed to protect a majority of the seating bowl. But the core issue is bigger than whether the stadium looks nice on opening day. The issue is that Buffalo just built one of the most expensive stadiums in NFL history, with massive public support, in one of the coldest and snowiest football markets in America, and it still does not have a full roof. The final cost is just over $2.1 billion. When the deal was announced in 2022, the project was described as a $1.4 billion stadium. The public commitment was $850 million, with $600 million coming from New York State and $250 million from Erie County. At the time, supporters argued the deal was necessary to keep the Bills in Western New York for the next 30 years. Buffalo has lived with the fear of losing the Bills for decades. For a market like Buffalo, the team is more than a football operation. It is part of the city's identity, part of the region's economy, and part of how Western New York sees itself. So when a stadium deal is framed as the price of keeping the team, the politics change quickly. But that does not automatically make the deal good, because when taxpayers contribute $850 million to a stadium, the public has a right to ask what kind of building they are actually getting. And in Buffalo's case, the answer is complicated. The region got a new NFL stadium, but it did not get a dome. It did not get a downtown stadium. It did not get a fully weather-protected venue that could realistically compete for the biggest indoor events. It got a football-first, open-air stadium in Orchard Park, built beside the old stadium. That is where the failure argument starts. The new Highmark Stadium seats 60,108 people. The old stadium had a much larger capacity, around 72,000. So Buffalo spent more than $2 billion and ended up with a smaller building. That is not automatically bad. Modern stadiums often reduce capacity because they add wider seats, better circulation, more premium spaces, and higher revenue areas. But it changes the fan equation. Fewer seats usually means tighter supply. Tighter supply usually means higher prices. And in Buffalo, that has already become one of the biggest stories around the new building. The Bills introduced personal seat licenses, or PSLs, for season ticket buyers at the new stadium. That means fans who want season tickets need to buy the right to buy those tickets. The team has said fans contributed $263 million through PSL purchases. On paper, that helps finance the stadium. In reality, it also shifts a major part of the private stadium cost onto the fan base. That is a hard sell in Buffalo. This is a market built around working-class football culture. The Bills' fan identity is not luxury lounges, celebrity entrances, and climate-controlled corporate suites. The image of Buffalo football is cold weather, parking lots, tailgates, family traditions, and fans who have been showing up through decades of disappointment, playoff heartbreak, and bad weather. Now, many of those same fans are being asked to pay more just to keep their place in the new building. Some PSLs were cheaper in the upper levels, but premium and lower bowl licenses reached much higher price points. By 2026, the Bills' own season ticket page said all available PSLs were sold out, and fans could only join a priority list for future access. That creates a strange situation. The public helped pay for the stadium, fans helped finance it through PSLs, and yet access to the building is becoming more restricted and more expensive. Supporters of the project will point out that the Bills are responsible for the overruns, and that is true. The public commitment stayed at $850 million, while the total project cost rose above $2.1 billion. As the cost climbed, the public share became a smaller percentage of the total. Erie County officials have argued that the final split looks better for taxpayers than the original version because the Pagulas are covering the extra cost. But that does not erase the original number. $850 million public dollars is still $850 million public dollars. That money went toward a stadium controlled around a private NFL franchise. It helped secure a 30-year lease. It kept the Bills in Buffalo. But it also helped create a new building where the average fan may have a harder time getting inside than before. The stadium itself is not cheap or bare bones. It has real design upgrades. It has a 360-degree canopy, heated concourses, radiant heating above some seats, a heated natural grass field, and a snowmelt system built into the canopy. The stadium was also rotated north-south instead of east-west, which is meant to reduce the impact of winds coming off Lake Erie. The bowl is designed to be tighter and louder, keeping fans closer to the field. The exterior has more protection than the old stadium, and the concourses are a major step up from the dark, narrow spaces of the former Highmark Stadium. Those are real improvements, but the roof question does not go away. Buffalo is one of the few NFL markets where weather is part of the brand. The Bills have built a home field identity around snow, wind, and cold. There is an argument that an open-air stadium preserves that advantage. For some fans, a dome would have felt wrong. It would have taken away part of what makes a Bills home game feel different from other NFL venues. That argument has emotional weight, but it also has limits, because this is not a $700 million stadium. It is a stadium that finished just over $2.1 billion. At that price, people are going to compare it to the most ambitious buildings in the NFL. They are going to look at stadiums in Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Atlanta, Minnesota, and other markets, and ask why Buffalo spent this much without getting a fully enclosed, year-round venue. A dome would have cost more. That is the usual counter-argument. But the project already became much more expensive than originally announced. It climbed from the original $1.4 billion framework to just over $2.1 billion. And once the price reaches that level, the open-air decision becomes much harder to explain to anyone looking at the stadium as a public asset. A roof changes what a stadium can be. An enclosed or fully covered stadium can host major winter events with fewer weather concerns. It can make concerts, neutral site games, conventions, and large entertainment events easier to schedule. It can potentially compete for events that an open-air Buffalo stadium will struggle to attract. It does not guarantee a Super Bowl or a Final Four, but it at least puts the building in a different category. The new Highmark Stadium has event spaces. It has clubs. It has private areas. It will be used outside of Bills games. But an open-air stadium in Orchard Park is still mostly a football stadium. It is built around 10 or so NFL home games a year, plus preseason, playoffs if the Bills earn them, and selected other events. That is a narrow return for a building with this kind of public cost. The location is another major issue. They stayed in Orchard Park, across Abbott Road from the old stadium. That keeps the tailgate culture alive, and it avoids the massive complication of a downtown land deal. But it also means the stadium remains in a suburban setting that is heavily car-dependent and surrounded by parking. That decision lowered risk for the team. It kept the Bills close to their existing operations. It preserved the traditional game day setup. But for public officials trying to justify hundreds of millions in taxpayer money, it weakens the economic argument. A downtown stadium is not automatically a good deal either. Plenty of downtown stadium plans overpromise and underdeliver. But at least the argument is clearer. Build in the city, connect the venue to surrounding businesses, and use game days and events to support an urban district. Buffalo did not do that. Instead, the public helped fund a replacement stadium in roughly the same place, serving roughly the same core purpose, for a much higher price, with fewer seats, expensive PSLs, and no full roof. That is why critics see the project as a missed opportunity. The best defense of the stadium is simple. It keeps the Bills in Buffalo. Losing the Bills would have been devastating for Western New York. The franchise is one of the region's most visible institutions. The team brings attention, spending, jobs, and civic pride. For many fans, there is no acceptable version of the future where the Bills leave. So if the stadium deal was the cost of securing the team for another generation, some people will accept it. But that argument also reveals the uncomfortable part of modern stadium politics. The public was not just buying concrete, steel, seats, and concourses. The public was buying certainty. The public was paying to remove the relocation threat. That is the leverage NFL teams have. Cities and states are asked to choose between spending massive public money or risking the loss of something culturally irreplaceable. And now the region has a stadium that is impressive in some ways, but still open to the sky. That open-air design will produce amazing moments. There will be snow games. There will be loud playoff nights. The first time the Bills run out in the new stadium, the place will look and sound incredible. If Josh Allen is still playing at an MVP level and the Bills are contenders, the building will feel like a major event from day one. A stadium can be exciting and still be a bad deal. A stadium can be beautiful and still be financially questionable. A stadium can preserve tradition and still fail to maximize what a $2.1 billion project should deliver. That is the contradiction with Buffalo's new stadium. The team wanted modern revenue without abandoning the outdoor identity. So the design tries to split the difference. It gives fans more protection, but not full protection. It keeps the cold weather feel, but tries to make the building more comfortable. It modernizes the old Orchard Park experience, but does not radically change what the venue is. That compromise may work for football. It may even make the Bills' home field advantage stronger. The canopy can trap sound, reduce wind, and keep some snow off the seating bowl. The stadium should be far better than the old building for circulation, concessions, premium seating, and comfort. But compromise is exactly the problem when the final bill is this high. At $2.1 billion, people expect more than a better version of the old stadium. They expect a venue that changes the market. They expect a building that expands the region's event calendar. They expect a stronger public return. They expect a stadium that can be used in every season without weather being the central concern. They expect the kind of facility that can justify one of the largest public stadium commitments in American sports. Instead, Buffalo got a very expensive football stadium, and the fan access issue makes that even sharper. The Bills Mafia identity has always been sold as communal. The team belongs emotionally to the region, even if it is privately owned. The fans show up, shovel snow, fill the stadium, travel to road games, and turn Buffalo football into a national brand. That passion is part of the reason the Bills are valuable. But in the new stadium era, that same passion is being monetized more aggressively. PSLs are not unique to Buffalo. They are common in modern NFL stadiums. But that does not make them easier for fans to accept, especially after taxpayers already helped fund the building. Public money helps build the stadium, fans pay seat license fees to keep season tickets, capacity drops, and then the first regular season home game creates a secondary market where many available seats are listed at extremely high prices. The Bills later added another open practice for August 18, 2026, after the annual Blue and Red event was made exclusive to season ticket holders. That move gives more fans a chance to see the stadium before the season, but it also shows the pressure point. The new stadium is already creating a divide between fans who bought into the new model and fans who feel pushed further away from the team they helped support. That is where the word failure starts to make sense. Not because the stadium cannot host football. It can. Not because the stadium has no upgrades. It has plenty. The failure is that Buffalo spent at the highest level without solving the biggest long-term questions. The stadium is smaller. It is expensive. It is publicly supported. It is open air. It remains in Orchard Park. It leans heavily into premium revenue. And it asks fans to pay more for access to a building they already helped fund through public money. For the Bills organization, the project may still be a success. The franchise gets a modern stadium, better revenue streams, new premium inventory, improved player facilities, and long-term stability in Buffalo. The Pagulas get a new building that strengthens the value of the franchise. The NFL gets one of its most passionate markets locked in for decades. For taxpayers and ordinary fans, the answer is much less clear. They get the emotional security of keeping the team. They get a better game day building. They get a stadium that honors Buffalo's outdoor football culture. But they also get one of the most expensive open-air stadiums ever built, with no full roof, reduced capacity, PSL barriers, and limited year-round upside compared to fully enclosed stadiums. That is why the new Highmark Stadium is so easy to criticize before the Bills even play a regular season game there. It is not a disaster in construction terms. It is not falling apart. It is not unfinished. It is not a ghost project. It is a finished stadium that exposes the entire problem with modern NFL stadium deals. The team gets the asset. The league gets the security. The owner gets the value increase. The fans get the bill in more than one way. And the public gets told the real victory is that the team did not leave. For Buffalo, that may be enough emotionally. But for $2.1 billion with $850 million in public money attached to the project, enough is a very low bar. The building is here now. The old stadium across the street is at the end of its life. The new era starts against Detroit in September. The cameras will show the canopy, the packed stands, the fresh grass, the new lights, the new clubs, and the crowd noise. And then winter will come. That is when Buffalo's $2.1 billion open-air gamble really begins.
And that's our video for you today on the new Highmark Stadium for the Buffalo Bills. Let me know your thoughts and feedback down below, what your take is on the whole controversial aspect here, and we'll see you next time on TFC Stadiums. Ciao.